On Sunday the 14th of January 2024, Marcus Rashford scored Manchester United's second goal in a 2-2 draw with Tottenham. It was his first goal of the season at Old Trafford, with his last home goal coming 8 months before. You would have thought there would be an outpouring of emotion from the striker after ending this drought. But instead, Rashford chose to jog along to the corner whilst doing a yapping gesture with his hand. The message was clear. He was hitting back at all of those who had criticised him for months after many lacklustre performances. But in that moment, that simple gesture revealed a lot about Marcus Rashford as a player, that he cares so much about what people think of him. And unfortunately, this has perhaps been the strongest contributing factor to him having a yo-yo career. In the season prior to this Tottenham game, he underwent a redemption, scoring a career-high 30 goals for Manchester United, which actually came after his worst season of just 5 goals in the 2021-22 campaign. Rashford has admittedly faced a lot of abuse in his career, but so too has any modern player where there are such high expectations of them. His England teammate Harry Kane has endured years of abuse for not winning a trophy, and it took him years to shake off the bizarre sticky label of being a one-season wonder, despite a consistent scoring record most strikers can only dream of. So why is it that some athletes like Rashford stop performing in the face of criticism, whereas others like Kane just take it in their stride and carry on performing to the best of their ability? Well, the reason is more common than you think. It's something every athlete will face at some point in their career, but only a few know how to instantly cope with it and control it. And this thing is mental blocks. Quite simply, mental blocks are barriers in your mind that hinder optimal performance. They manifest as doubts, fears, or anxieties, or just a lack of self-belief that ultimately prevents athletes from unleashing their true potential. If left unchecked, they result in the yo-yoing form typical of Marcus Rashford's career. Nothing physical changes. It's not like you suddenly lose the ability to perform certain skills, movements, or actions, but instead, mental blocks cause you to lose your capability. They literally set up a barrier between your mind and body, so those movements that were so effortless before become clunky, and they cause what was once smooth to become tense. But all is not lost. Overcoming mental blocks is easier than you think. It takes some work, but it's all about applying the right strategies. So if you want to stop mental blocks from ruining your game, watch the rest of this video, because I'm going to reveal the 3 principles of bulldozing your mental blocks for good. So let's get started. First up, let's quickly run through why mental blocks occur. There are many reasons, some unique to each person, but from my experience working with athletes as a mental performance coach, the main overarching reason for mental blocks is the external threatening the internal. Now, what I mean by this is external factors being perceived by you in a way that disrupts the order of your internal mind. In his yapping celebration, Marcus Rashford clearly demonstrated that external criticism had rattled him. Compare that to his consistent celebration in the previous season of just pointing to his own head and closing his eyes. That shows that when he was performing at his best, his internal was rock solid and he wasn't letting anything penetrate it. So criticism is one of the key externals that really allows a mental block to take its roots in our mind. Another example would be the curious case of Zion Williamson, who in 2019 became the unanimous first pick in the NBA draft. There arguably had not been as much hype for a player entering the league than LeBron James 16 years earlier. Fast forward to today, and Williamson is arguably a bang average player. Why? Well, yes, criticism of him has been heavy surrounding his weight and general physical condition, along with his professionalism. But beyond that, in Williamson's case, the key external that has arguably led to mental blocks surrounding his internal is expectations. When athletes face expectations from others, whether that's their coach, teammates, or even a crowd, that massively influences their internal state. Knowing that eyes are watching you and hoping to see something special can massively interfere with your ability to execute and perform optimally. Anything less than becoming Rookie of the Year would have been considered a failure by many of the millions of fans who were eager to see Zion enter the league. And this same factor of expectations is why so many athletes are great in training, but then suck on game day. In training, there's not much expectation to perform and stand out. Yet when the time comes to perform, that expectation can really flood into your mind and become a negative distraction or just simply overwhelm you, resulting in you spending more time thinking about what if I screw up or don't deliver? And it becomes a dangerous cycle. What starts off as a curb that you slightly trip over becomes a wall that's impossible to climb over. And this is what leads to many athletes going months, if not years, of poor performances. So to summarize, mental blocks mainly happen because externals start messing around with your internals. Criticism and expectations are the biggest ones, but so too can be just the importance of a particular performance. That's why many athletes freeze during the cup final or the biggest race of the season. And now we know what causes these mental blocks, the big question that you want answering is, how do I overcome them? Well, it depends on the severity of the block and what exactly it is, but there are 3 key principles any athlete in any sport can use to start regaining that mental clarity and flow that contributes to peak performance. And the first is somewhat counterintuitive, and this is detach. Detaching from the intense world of sports for a brief period can be a powerful tool to reset the mind and dissolve your mental blocks. Many athletes find solace in activities unrelated to their primary sport. For instance, numerous footballers, including the likes of Harry Kane, who we mentioned earlier, turn to golf as a means of detachment. With its tranquil setting and strategic gameplay, golf provides a stark contrast to the noise and sometimes quite toxic pressure of football. A round of 18 holes takes over 4 hours to complete, offering players a substantial break from the intensity of their main sport. And Harry Kane, as said before, has seemingly not let mental blocks plague his career. Despite many setbacks and issues when playing in at times a very dysfunctional Tottenham team. And it turns out he's a scratch golfer, meaning he regularly shoots par or better. So he clearly has put a lot of hours into his golf game away from the football pitch. This unique hobby has allowed Kane to detach from the criticism and social media ridicule that has always been nagging away at him throughout his entire career. The peaceful and leisurely nature of golf serves as a mental reset, enabling him to return to the football field with a clearer mindset. So whether it's engaging in a different sport, spending time in nature, or simply unplugging from the digital world, finding activities that bring you joy and relaxation is crucial for any athlete suffering from a mental block. Detaching doesn't necessarily mean a complete break from physical activity. It's about creating mental distance from the pressure of your main sport. And I get that sometimes detaching is fine, but then you get back into training and suddenly that block can reappear if you make a mistake or run through a drill poorly. So in those moments, it's really important to keep principle 2 in mind. Minimalization. Effectively minimizing the impact of failures or challenging moments is crucial for athletes striving to erode mental blocks that seem quite fixed and rooted in your mind. To put this into context, let's chat about Olympic gymnast gold medalist Shawn Johnson. In an old podcast clip, she details that her coach would help her push through her mental blocks by celebrating failure. So what a coach would do is minimize the impact of mistakes by reframing them as indicators of progress. So when Johnson fell during practice routines or encountered mental blocks that caused her to freeze on the beam, her coach would respond with a positive perspective, saying, "We're doing something right," demonstrating the understanding that it's natural to face some resistance when pushing oneself to the limit in terms of both physical and technical ability. And this approach aimed to shrink the significance of the failure or the pressure of performing and restore a healthy perspective. From a psychological standpoint, minimizing the impact of failures works by tricking the brain into caring less about setbacks. When athletes can frame negative experiences as opportunities for growth, it reduces the stress associated with failure. This shift in mindset leads to greater relaxation, enabling athletes to perform with increased confidence and focus. So a great tool I use with athletes that I work with is "Did you die?" And this basically involves asking them that question when they're down about a bad moment or a poor run of form. Those things that typically contribute to a mental block. And this just opens up a discussion to realize that, look, yes, performing your absolute best is important, but there are more important things in life beyond sport. And if you can just spend a touch of time thinking about those other things, it forces your brain to stop taking sport too seriously. And this eases up that tension so that next time you play or perform, you're a bit calmer and just a bit more relaxed. You're still engaged and focused, but you've just lessened the stranglehold that you've ended up having over yourself internally. This is a great minimalization strategy just to nudge you back into the more playful side of sport, which, if you think about it, growing up was what, one, got you involved in sport to begin with, and two, I can guarantee has led to some of your best moments in sport. When just playing for joy and fun, our best can come out because we're not playing with inhibition or care. So now our journey to conquer mental blocks in sports concludes with a powerful principle: staying present. Often, mental blocks arise from the athlete's mind wandering into the future, dwelling on potential failures, or getting trapped in the past, ruminating on mistakes. Because of this, one of the primary culprits behind mental blocks is the mind's tendency to time travel, either to the future or the past. When athletes are preoccupied with potential negative consequences or haunted by past mistakes, it creates a disconnect between the mind and body. This disjointed connection can severely hinder an athlete's ability to just execute in the present moment. When you're still kicking yourself over a bad pass that happened like 10 minutes ago, or thinking about the embarrassment that might come from losing a game against a weaker opponent, you're literally denying yourself the opportunity to perform with that carefree and seamless flow that we spoke about earlier. One of the best examples of the power of staying present in sports is Novak Djokovic. Aside from his insane Grand Slam winning record, he is known for a number of legendary comebacks in pivotal tennis matches where he's had to come back from 2 sets down and still win. This success can be attributed in part to his intense focus on the present moment. In situations where he's facing losing positions, Djokovic avoids getting entangled in the thoughts of of potential defeat or past errors. He has an incredible ability to simply notice a mistake or error, but then very quickly reset himself to get back to the present moment, focusing on the immediate point at hand with unwavering concentration. How does he specifically do this, and how can you do so too? Well, watch this next video here to learn the practical strategies that Novak Djokovic uses to remain present-minded and free from mental blocks.